Very much for joining me. Polina chatting to you a little bit about this time, about solstice and Christmas and New Year's, and also the full moon in Cancer happening at the end of the month. So this is kind of like a take on it all. So first, I'd like to congratulate you on a very, very beautiful state of completion or a state of culmination of events, which should be seen by the 21st of December. So on the 21st, we have a solstice. It is a winter solstice for some and a summer solstice for other people. And it's a really, really beautiful time to call it a day. So solstice is there as a culmination or a climax of a certain type of timeline. It's usually really, really good to see where you have come off very well, where you have become very wealthy and very knowledgeable and very shining. Where are you well off, basically, and which way did you maybe not succeed? So it's a really good counting of chickens. You know, we have these kind of measures. We have equinoxes, 2 equinoxes and 2 solstices in a year, and sometimes they basically just help you see where you should have been or where you cannot be. And sometimes it's kind of like a calling, you know, a calling of events as true or not true, a calling of certain type of incentives of as real or not real. It's a kind of like a calling back also. So it's a calling back to center. So solstice is where the sun is at its highest or lowest point in the sky, and it's one of the best reasons to celebrate who you are and who you are here and now. Don't be shy. But because it is winter time for some and it is the peak of winter, it's kind of not so good to go overboard with celebrations. So it is very, very wise to preserve energy if there is winter where you are. And if it is cold, it is so good to stay home and stay humble and stay sure. It's a good time to be reassured. It's a good time to be safe. But yes, also we have this incredible event that's happening in the sky. We have Jupiter conjunct Saturn, of course, walking into Aquarius. Very, very lovely and lively time for many people, with also this Mercury following the sun. It's a very beautiful time to really rejoice and also to be remembered for something that you do, something that you say. We have a very memorable and memory-full moon by the end of the month. So on the 29th we have a full moon on Cancer, and it is ruled by the moon, and this is where the moon is the most comfortable. And sometimes we have a certainty that we have to understand or a certainty we have to forget. So this is about forgetting and remembering. If you have stated yourself in a certain way recently, if you had an exhibition or expose of who you are or your work, if you've started to become very, very kind to yourself and what you mean to yourself, if you want to start to become more memorable or more remembered by the people, if you really wanted to uproot also certain memories, such as bad behavior or negative karma, it's very, very good time to start to think about that if you want. So by the end of the year, we have a very, very beautiful window here to help us understand the remembrance, you know, the remembrance of all things, what we carry with us into the future, and also what we take back, take out, and how do we measure time, measure who we are through memory. And how do we value ourselves, you know, our friends, you know, how do we value life based on what we have come to know, remember, and understand. So this is one of those very interesting times, as the moon is going to eventually guide us onto a bigger, better, hopefully, platform as to who we are and how we're going to fill out and fill in gaps in our experience through what we believe or remember to be right and correct. So this is more a measure of memory, measure of time, measure of self-esteem, and the like. But before that, we have quite a lot of things happening. Okay, so as I've said earlier, Saturn is something very, very important actually right now in the sky, not just because it's conjunct Jupiter, not just because it's going into Aquarius. It is a very Saturnian month. We are going through a Saturnian month of Capricorn right about now. And we have to remember how to do this good, you know, how to make things straight and narrow, how to make things great, function and form, the format of our lives. We have to understand how to stabilize now and how to take things further if we have to, or if we got to, and also what to do next. So functionality, process, the effort that we put into our daily lives is very important right about now. And also the function of our hopes and dreams. I mean, right now it's very possible for some people to fly off a little bit with their new visions or new versions of who they think they are, because Aquarius is a very hopeful time. Aquarius is a very beautiful sign, and we're heading towards Aquarius with the Sun and Mercury and Saturn and Jupiter have already crossed into Aquarius. So we're starting to become a little bit also hopeless in the way that we dream. So the best idea is not to scatter around and not to give ourselves too many jobs and too many things to do and too many ambitions at the moment. It is actually quite safe to embed and just to understand the purpose as it stands now, instead of embellishing ourselves any further. But the thing is, sometimes people don't feel very good or don't feel right about how nature has formed them. Sometimes people feel not very good about the beauty of themselves or the beauty of their life, and sometimes people tend to overcomplicate and overstate things. So if you are one of those people who are overly epic right now, or are looking for a false embellishment or like false way of being remembered or united with people, please understand this is just a passing phase, and maybe you haven't done enough to gain self-respect and self-esteem earlier, which is why you might be potentially at the moment scrambling for a certain cause and effect with people and also with your style of life. So please beware if you suddenly want to be showy, if you suddenly want to put all your money on blackjack, if you suddenly want to become famed or well known, if you suddenly want to become very, very well-to-do in society, if you want to embellish who you are, if you want to like put on all those bright and colorful colors all of a sudden, please understand this is a passing phase and may not be sustainable. So we have to be well sustained as Jupiter and Saturn are going into the sign of Aquarius, and also as the Sun is heading towards Aquarius as well. We have to know what is what, and also we have to remember who we are and stay true. And that is not something that sometimes people are available to do during such a beautiful, hopeful time. Also, the age of Aquarius, some people have come to believe that we are at a crossing of worlds. I do believe that we are going into one of the phases of that which is the coming of age of our planet and of our sun, and that we are growing in spirit, and then there is a new, better, brighter world coming up into greater fruition in the next year. I do trust there's going to be a huge awakening, and I do believe that this is part of it all, reviving itself, and maybe also reviving the old and making space for the new ways that are more true and more correct for all of us. So yes, I do believe there is some kind of like a turning point in reality, but at the same time I don't trust that Earth is going to just over a few days start to beam a new light, and that people are going to get new bodies and everything is going to start to be more like Eden, although there are some people that are already living that. So the thing here is basically to trust your own light, trust your own guidance, and at the level that you're at, be that person and create on this level here and now. And it also sometimes feels difficult for us to believe that the level we're at, the talents we have, or the people we have around us are going to be those giving lights or those giving energies that are going to sustain us. But it does feel to me that wherever you are, however you've ended up, by the solstice time, by the end of this year, there is going to be something of a gift there for you, and there's going to be a sustainable future. But just keep things together and try not to fly off. Now, it's very easy to fly away somewhere. It's very easy to get too risky or too frisky or too emotional, simply because we do also have a very significant Venus in the sky behind the sun. So the idea of travel and universities joining new pictures, joining people, joining new tribes, that's kind of like high and mighty for some people. But I think that at the moment to join things up too fast or to go into a very far-fetched dimension can be costly to us. So the thing here is to basically keep things down We are in Capricorn, and I'm hearing also like try to avoid humiliation. You know, for some people, putting all that money, putting all that energy, all that time towards something that is very flighty and fruity and colorful might not be all is cracked up to be, or there might be a price to pay or a hidden cost. So the thing here is basically to softly and carefully join the new dots without making anything at a cost to you. If you're changing location, changing town, if you're going into a new situation, if you're starting a new business, if you're starting anything up again also that you've already been part of, please try to make sure that it is cost effective and that you're not just putting all your money towards something or somebody that really doesn't need to necessarily be part of your life for that much further. So for some people, this time is last calls, you know, the last call for love, the last call to dance, the last call to try to travel, you know, and everything like that. And there's a lot of hopefulness amongst us, but at the same time, please consider we are in Capricorn season. We still have to make sure that it is able to mature with us, so that we don't just like fall in love and fall out of love simultaneously, or we don't spend too much of ourselves and our energy on things that we don't really have to hold on to later on. So very careful with romance, very careful with travel, very careful with taking off into a brand new direction, unless it is very easy for you, very affordable and very supported. And even then, the cause and effect of this time is so that you've got to be very, very stiff and very kind to your previous choices. So we have to kind of transfer realities and not to just jump out of the water, not just to jump at a new person or jump into a new experience, because that can sometimes not be affordable later on in time, or it might be a whole bunch of hiccups and a few bumps along the way to take you right back to where you are now. So the thing is basically to respect what you have done so far and what you know you can afford. So this is practicality. I mean, we're in Capricorn season. I know a lot of people don't want to hear this right now, because at this point, also with Pluto and Mercury within it, Capricorn is not going to be very happy with just, you know, staying in one place. There's a jumpiness, and there's this Plutonian arrogance that sometimes comes in. And here we have a lot of people wanting to do something extra, something special, and want to be better and higher than they were before, or they want to climb higher than other people, and they want to bump heads and, you know, bump and grind all the way to a brand new culture, brand new start, or brand new possibility. And there's a bit of a party aspect to all of this. So I'm kind of like trying to help you here now understand the givens. Okay, where you are, you know, where your family lives, you know, how are you going? What is your connection to the greater world? How are you going with money? Okay, how are you going with finances? How are you going with your self-esteem? What are you growing every day? What are you creating? What are you crafting? How are you going as a creative? What is your state of abundance on all levels? And how are you in the natural life? So like as you go about your day, you know, are there any bumps on the road? Are there any cracks, you know, in your ceiling? You know, do you have any issues? Please iron these out now. Try to understand where you belong and what works better than other things. So I mean, here you basically have to see, okay, this thing here, I do this thing and I get paid. Or like, for example, every time I perform in this way, I am guaranteed success. Or each time I'm participating in a certain group of people is going to go very smooth. Smoothness and eloquence. So this is where practicality is very good. Let's all come back to earth here, because it is a very flighty time. It's also a very fighty time. And there are a lot of us that can use a lot of energy and time and money and essence and presence for the wrong thing, you know. So it's very easy here to put, as I've said, all your money on blackjack, to jump up and down and do a million cartwheels and things for the wrong people, for the wrong situation, in the wrong context, in the wrong space and time. So very, very, very careful. If there are parts of you that want to jump up and down, or jump at a certain type of responsibility, or jump into a certain kind of boat. So no jumping. Sound like such a mum. It's okay. So like basically the best thing I believe for everyone during this time is to try to keep matters tight and package things. This is not something people like to do because we get told there is, Christmas and New Year's and we can't really afford to concentrate on anything. Like, come on, like just relax, just have fun. But what if I told you? What if I told you that Capricorn is the best time of year to get things done? This is hands down the best time to work hard on yourself. This is a good time to work on your psyche. If you're taking shamanic medicines, plant medicines, this is the best time. If you're interested in meeting your darker self, your shadow self, this is the best time to do it. If you want to get rid of a huge trauma or karma, if you want to see a physician or a therapist, this is the time to do the dirtiest work around. Capricorn is the last shadow sign before Pisces. Okay, so if we understand the zodiac, I think we kind of get to see where we belong here, within ourselves and other people in the greater world. Okay, so there are 12 signs, yeah. Beginning is on the 21st of March on the equinox as we head into the baby. We head into the sign of the baby. We head into the ram. Okay, Aries, the ram is the sign of the baby. It's the sign of the birth. This is the beginning, hands down, energetically, mythologically, this is the beginning. This is the most innocent of signs, and then it goes all the way into Pisces. Okay, and we also have light, masculine signs, energetic signs, and we also have dark signs, as they say, or feminine signs. And the thing is, here we have the highest state of shadow. Okay, we have the highest state of the feminine in a way also. We have Capricorn. Capricorn is the elderly, okay? This is the last shadow sign. I count it as the last because I believe Pisces is no man's land. It is kind of like an eraser sign. It's like an erasing mechanism between worlds. So between the beginning and the end of the year, there is this kind of like loopy period where nature gets destructive a little bit. Some things get destroyed, some things get re-envisioned, and we have a brand new dream coming through in Aries time. So to me, Pisces is not exactly the last or the first sign. It is an in-between kind of like void. It's an erosion mechanism to be able to start things again. It's like the magician sign, okay, the most mystical sign. Now, Capricorn is the last evolution of shadow. This is the greatest shadow. If you look at the shadow signs, from sort of slightly goofy, kind Taurus to the very magical, maniacal, crazy Scorpio, and then the last sign being Capricorn. It's like when you take the shadow, when you take the hurt, or you take the greed or the guilt or the emotionality, and you start to make it into matter. So this is where shadow kind of gives up on itself as well and contracts a little bit in order to serve the greater purpose, and the greater purpose of humanity, which is the next sign of Aquarius and the last light sign within the sequence. So we have to understand here we are in a very, very kind of greedy and secretly needy sign of Capricorn, just trying to tie up its errands and trying to do the best with what it can handle, with what it has. So that's when the old man passes on his knowledge. This is when the elderly prepare to die. Okay, and this is when it's like the last stage of someone's life or career. It is in no way the first sign. So this is very foolish what we've done. Also Saturn, rules Capricorn, okay? This is the densest time. This is one of the densest energies. Father Time, also in ancient mythology, Saturn eats his own children, destroys his own creation. This is a very, very unusual way to stop and start a year. And if we look at the Christianic symbolism and the system and everything like that, and also obsession with the church and power and everything like that, and all these mechanisms behind mainstream Christianity and traditional Christianity, such as Catholicism, we have to understand what it has brought to us as a species and how it's kind of conquered the world in a sense. And a lot of these political bodies that have colonized half the world have Christianity behind them. So we have to understand what Christianity is as a larger, more political organism. I'm not saying anything against Christian faith because I trust it has a very beautiful place in the world. I'm not just saying that. I also have a belief system that is partially Christianic in a way, and I've seen many visions during my medicine journeys that were Christianic visions, and Christian mysticism was very unusual and interesting to me. But at the same time, I have to say, political, global powers that be, like with the Roman Catholic Church and everything like that, and also the age of the conqueror, where there were lots of wars of people just going and taking land from other people. And this is a very very emotional topic for some people. We have to understand what it's based on, and it's based on Father Time, it's based on Satan, Satan, and it's also based on this kind of belief in the controversial need to structure and no matter what create, which is what I'm kind of like seeing now fall massively as Jupiter and Saturn itself do not support the sign of Capricorn anymore, the house of Saturn. So to me it feels like, how can I say, we don't really want to know this, we don't want to hear it, but we need to be aware as to why the Christian Church has decided to cut into the Capricorn's horns, the Capricorn's ears. Also I believe that the sun here falls in the sign, in a nakshatra, in the Vedic nakshatra, for hearing during this time. Why we are snapped away from our perception, we snapped away from our pineal gland here, from our root chakra, and we are asked to start things on a brand new whimsical note when it is not whimsical anymore. This is the darker sign, this is the sign of the elder once again. And we have to understand that also through space and time, there are people, that still hold this as well. There was celebration of Saturnalia in ancient Rome and such, and also ancient Mesopotamia. There were some celebrations there. In the old world, this is the time of the goat. Okay, this is the time of Father Time. Also Saturn itself, Satan. And the celebration during the season is not at all warm and loving. So a lot of people believe this is a time of baby Jesus, baby Christ, the baby, the new, the fresh, family, home, and all things good, loving and compassionate. But you see, this belief has been artificially pasted over the traditional beginnings of this holiday, which are all part of Roman culture, pagan culture, which were dedicated originally to Saturn, the irony of time. This is where the poor were the rich and the rich were the poor. People were abused, animals were sacrificed, also people were sacrificed during this time. So this is not something that modern day culture would at all believe or really understand, but if you like, please take the time. If you don't trust me, if you don't believe me, that's okay. Have a look at Saturnalia and this holiday, this Roman holiday that's held, I think, between the 17th and the 23rd, traditionally, of December. And the representation of Saturn also in classical culture. And that it is about killing, that it is about the craftsmanship behind war and destruction, and also death itself, old age, falling away, the withering of things. And of course, if we consider this is winter time for many people, it does make sense not to celebrate this. And also, the cutting of trees, Christmas trees and things, and the connection of Yule also to Christmas, the Christmas spirit, which has nothing to do with baby Jesus at all. Christmas trees did not grow in Israel like that. They didn't cut Christmas trees in Israel. It's not part of their thing. This is a Nordic thing. And Yule was it was about safety and protection, protection of peers, protection of home, like good wishes and everything like that. And plus, of course, some people might say that the red mushrooms, the Amanita mushrooms, were the beginning of Christmas decorations, which belong to more like Mongolian tribes, where they have the reindeer and everything. I mean, this is a whole bunch of stuff. And they used to maybe dry the Amanita mushrooms on the trees, and the Amanita mushrooms were used as a hallucinogen. Well, now this is something I can relate to, because, this is a perfect time to go into the elder state, to face death and the idea of your own death as you age, as you come to the end of your life. And of course, hallucinogens such as Amanita mushrooms, which I don't advise anybody to take. They're highly dangerous and also very addictive things. Okay, so like why people would take these mushrooms, because they brought them into near-death experiences, near-death states, which would make them wiser and in a sense holier, you know, because through seeing, witnessing your own death or the ending of your own path, one would become a wiser sage. Okay, so what I'm trying to say to you is, this is not about presents. Like, this is not about tinsel. This is not about twinkle, 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 little star, or like the little angel at the top of the Christmas tree. I mean, all of this is traditionally very dark stuff. I mean, this is like the dark ages of culture. This is like prehistoric times. And I also trust that a lot of us don't really want to know that. People are so, how can I say, possessed by this time. And consider that you're performing a ritual if you're sitting at a table with these, you know, the things that go boom, you know, those Christmas poppers, if you are eating a certain type of meal, if you are using a mistletoe, if you're doing all these things, consider that you're part of a ritual. And that ritual, even if you don't believe it, even if it's just fun and it's something that you grow up with, is a ritual. And I also trust that Christmas is actually not as bad as the end of the year, because it's impossible to find something new during the middle time of Capricorn. Capricorn is the elderly. This is where you tie things together and try to make sense of your life. This is not really the time of year to begin a new relationship with the earth. I mean, this is the most foolish time, the most futile time to start celebrating a brand new beginning. So if you are interested in understanding more about this, please, you know, take a look. There's probably quite a lot of material as to the numerical system, and also the fact that, okay, I'm going to drop this. There's 13 moons in the year, and there's 13 signs. There's not 12. Okay, so there's not 12 months. You know, like the year is measured completely wrong. The numerical system is part of the satanic rule on this planet. And why we don't have our freedom and our rights is partially because of this global nightmare that has skewed everything and has put the whole geometry of our galaxy within our minds out of kilter. And what for, you know, now like a lot of us moving around the world trying to find alternative ways of living and thinking, is because the system is so bad, and maybe it just takes a few of us to help another person who's living well inside the system. So the numerical system, although I do believe numerology does exist and it does help sometimes as part of a satanic connection to the system of rule that has been here since the Roman days, and even before that in ancient Sumeria and such like that. So like the thing is, we have to step out and we have to step up and just say, look, you know, we don't have to do this if we don't want to. I don't have to close down my business during the most amazing time of the year to make money. Capricorn is the most amazing time to make yourself more abundant and more strong in who you are. It's the most amazing time to be a master. It's a very good time to be very good at who you are. It's a very good time to plan your old age and to plan how you're going to sustain yourself in the future. I mean, this is not probably the best time for work and play, but this is one of the greatest times for job givers and one of the best times to hold a store if you are. And you don't have to close down your shop. You don't have to buy your peers or your children or your family things that they don't need. You know, everything has a shamanic element here. You know, you don't have to buy your kid a truck. You know, what are you doing? Why? You don't have to be part of something that you don't want to be part of. You don't have to go anywhere to a special function or a sale because you asked to. You don't have to do anything. I mean, this is a very, very good time for the woods, very good time for the trees, very good time to be sincere, very good time to take any kind of substances for spiritual use. And personal as well if you want, and to get through to yourself. This is really adult stuff, you know, and all of this hullabaloo is very incredibly satanic and very tiring that is happening outside. So, I mean, if you want to, you can always protect you and your family through a labyrinth of thought. Very interesting to have puzzles, very interesting to have time by the fire, very easy actually here to read, to learn, to be introspective, and to plan your days. Plan. It's a very good time for planning things. Okay, so unless you are a job giver and, a person who has achieved a certain type of mastery in their life, I mean, it's a very good time to go within. For some people, it's really good now to work as much as they can, because sometimes your efforts will provide you things for many years to come later during this time. And for a lot of people, it's just about going within and having your own inner private universe, and not to destroy your consciousness, not to destroy your world through the extremes that people are pushed and harvested through during this time. And also, yes, okay, a little bit about after, just a little bit. January doesn't begin anything. It's the horns of Capricorn. You're just chopping the horns of your goat. So what this means is, if you think that there's 2 years with a separate gap, and you're going into satanic worship of the numerical system, basically what this does is it provides you no return for what you do. And one of the returns for a goat is the fact that his horns will grow and they will mature him, and also he matures through them, as the horns for a goat are very important. They show who he is and how far he's come and what he's gonna do. So as a status symbol, it's also a symbol of maturity and progress. If you're chopping off your own progress on the 1st of Jan and you're starting a completely different game, you're basically getting rid of a lot of work, many hours, a lot of time, a lot of care that you've put into your life. So the thing here is not to be jolty and allow this time to be as smooth as possible if you want to achieve greater knowledge and success in the next year to come, which doesn't actually begin till the 21st of March. So anyway, smooth, easy does it. We have a full moon on the 29th. I already talked a little bit about this, but I'll say a few things more. Okay, memory banks. Some people are going to get very chaotic and very cathartic. There's some people that want to remember time for what it was not or what it was. Some people are going to get very emotional about mom and dad. If they're visiting their peers, they're visiting, their parents, they're visiting their old place to be, if they're reviving anything. Some people are going to get really lost and what that means to me, who you are to me, what you said one day, really broke my heart, or the way that we are is very sacred to me. So people are going to get lost in this memory stuff. There's a lot of people that think it's going to be a make or break during this time. I believe that a lot of people are going to try and speak the greatest truth, or give that big punch, or emit that big feeling. I think it's also going to be very foolish of us to do that. If the greatest consciousness we can reach is my mommy, my mommy was bad to me when I was a kid, and I'm going to tell her that she was, if that's all we can push out of ourselves during this time, that's a very foolish start to anything. And also the moon has just gone through the North Node, so we have a very, 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 very big time to get together with ourselves, our higher states, and try to understand, what are you seeding here? So for example, you have a brand or you have some kind of income, understand from which place in your heart that is coming. If you have children, if you have a family, understand how you are raising them. If you have a certain type of religious belief or spiritual practice, fantastic, understand where it's coming from. So I think it's more about these larger global things that are going to follow you through space and time. And a lot of people, I believe, also with the Christmas jitter, are going to get very, very foolish about what they're starting to remember, starting to state, what they're trying to weed out of their lives, or what they're trying to put in. So it's kind of like about combining things. It's a very, very beautiful moon to put new components into your life. They've already been coming through during previous days. And take old components out. It's like if we don't want something or someone in our lives, we can do this. It's like a surgical procedure for some. And for some other people, it's not. It's just a very simple kneading of dough. And, if you want to add things in, if you want to finally fully stabilize yourself, or if you want to be an artist, or if you want to work from home, if you want to have a child, all of this is very interesting, very positive to consider. But please consider the larger spectrum of things, so the biggest implications of what it is that you're about to undertake or do. So it's not really about you owe me, or he said this, she said that. It's actually really more about the bigger, more robust and just adult stuff. Capricorn is adult, practical stuff, and we have to now see how come we are within a certain rhythm, how come we are maybe also imprisoned by certain things. Why do we have places in our world that we cannot leave, or why do we have positions that we cannot afford, or something that takes out a lot of us, and takes too much of our energy, memory, or time. How come things take effort? And also I believe that we kind of have to, sounds weird, but bleed clean. We have South Node conjunct Venus behind the sun, so we have to, Venus is blood, we have to understand what is clean. We have to come out, and we have to no longer participate in a certain type of chaos or negative dream. And also there could be shifts in the family, of course, obviously, and what is family to us, and how much we do not trust them. And also for a lot of people, it is going to be about what they've done to me, like what my mother has said to me, what my father has done to me. So if that stuff is already coming up on top, last few years was a prime time to really figure your families out. Right year is not a very easy time to do that, because things get personal and toothy and emotional and achy and hearty, and there's like heartache, heart attacks possible during this time, with Venus also conjunct the South Node. So there's like a lot of emotionality here happening. So those classic Christmas fights, classic New Year's breakups and everything like that are very likely. So the thing here is not to control anybody and not to fixate on anything kind of too like part of the old, or too like part of something not real. Here you can really ruin your life by like calling up your ex and then trying to sort things out with them, or trying to push your mother into submission, or get your father to pay for something. This is where things get really toothy and very, very unclear later on in time. Just try to consider yourself as an adult, no matter how old you are. Even if you're 20 years old, it is a very, very good time to start to structure your life right about now anyway. And it's a really, really beautiful time to consider the implications of your actions and who you are wanting to be in a society, in a community, and so on. Photographs, video footage of you, where you show up or where you showed up before, any kind of trophies and commemorations, and any kind of materials that are floating around that you have created. So for example, you've written a book, you published something, please cherish that. It's a very, very perfect, pure time for the writer. It's a very, very good time for the seeker of truth, for the healer, the philosopher, the secret adventurer. No, because the sky is your limit here, if you really, really want to remember yourself as more pure, more beautiful, more real, if you want to join the dots even higher, if you want to go to even higher quantums. I'm sorry about the noise outside. I hope this doesn't disturb the microphone too much. So higher quantums, and if you want to be at peace with who you are later in life through the type of life and the type of tribe that you've been a part of and what you leave behind, definitely consider the big picture of what you're about to do if you have some ideas and thoughts, and also consider the different types of bigger pictures or larger images that you have created in your previous life. I'm sorry, there is something outside. So yeah, the thing here is basically to become more neutral also, and more up to you. And if you can, start to become deliberately strong in terms of acting as a separate entity for now. We have a very integrative time in Aquarius, as we're facing Aquarius by the 22nd, 23rd of Jan. So you will have a time to integrate it all. You will have a space for everybody in your life. But at the moment, it's a very lonely sign of Capricorn. Please consider how you are going to pull it alone. How you are going to be self-employed, how you're going to be self-efficient. Who are you as an actor, a writer, a person, a mother, a giver, a creator, craftsperson? Who are you as a craftsperson of your own life? Like, where are you standing in a pecking order, if there is a pecking order? And we also have to consider, although it's a very satanic principle, we have to consider the big machine. And if you're working in a corporate ladder, and if you are underneath somebody else, or somebody else is below you, it is very, very interesting right now to understand and consider and connect the dots in terms of the corporate ladder and the way that it all falls into place. And also beyond it, please consider the higher mind and what is beneath and above the corporate agenda, and how you are going as a person that works for an entity such as a bank. And if you are also looking at other people as higher standing or lower standing than you. Also, please understand how to break down your family systems, and how to no longer look at a path of another as greater or lesser. And yes, a lot of hierarchies come from the home, and a lot of hierarchical behavior and hierarchical spaces and places are drilled into us sometimes by our mother and father. So if you are part of this whirlwind of power and respect and money, and decadence, or this whirlwind of trying too hard and suffering for your cause, even though you might not be working directly for the Illuminati system, the bank system, or anything like that, or the corporate ladder, it might be very, very, no judgment, it might be very, very good and very, very sufficient of you to try and become more open to dismantling some of your past. Also, when it comes to learned behavior, the learned world that we receive directly from our mothers and fathers' thinking patterns, and from the way that they brought us up to be. So how we were told respect was given, how we were told that money was handed, how we were told achievement was measured, everything like that. If you're really struggling right now, if you're way below, way above, or you are not in perspective for yourself in terms of other people and how community works, which is really truly should be based on ants or bees, depending on the system. It's like bees, we should really be living like bees. If it doesn't work like that, and if you have some kind of vulgarity to your culture, if you can't look at a person who serves you your coffee normal, and if you also don't measure yourself correctly against other people, if you feel pathetic, if you don't make a certain amount of money, or if you feel very hungry for a certain type of outcome, it would be such a nice time to consider your parents here and consider the way that humiliation and power and control were used in a house, in a domestic environment, and what it has seeded in you as an adult human. And it is also a very, very good time to start now deprogramming. Okay, so this is where shamanic drugs go a long way for some. Okay, this is where trance states and certain types of retreats are very important for some people. Dream weaving, dream work. Also indigenous work, if you have indigenous genetics, and there are certain types of ways in which your specific culture deals with dream states and out-of-body states, it's a fantastic time to go into those. And also any kind of pre-Christianic ideas or thinking in terms of spirits and guides and ancestors, all of this stuff is very good learned background, and I think it'll help you a lot. And for some of us, I have to state this as well, who have bad families and bad speak in the family, and we have rotten beginnings also because of rotten ancestry, because of wars, because of colonialism, because of greed, because of the banking systems and other things, and the education system and religious and spiritual practice that were mainstream in a certain age. If we have rotten ancestry, it is such a good idea to go back, to stay indoors, and to try and reach those genetic pools that are living inside of you. So if you have a predisposition to art and music, if you have a warrior genes, if you have a certain type of emotionality, it might belong to a certain clan or a system, or very archaic system of trust. Maybe you have a very new open beginning in your heart already, but it comes from generations back. So maybe this is not you and your mother carrying on a certain purpose or a certain energy. Maybe that is not strong anymore, but maybe 4 or 5 generations ago you had an ancestor that used to have a very similar path to what you are living now. So this is about ancient revival and also ancestral conversations, and sometimes the only way that we can really have those, because most families don't keep any memory. Isn't that crazy? Of their family tree. Most families in the world don't know anybody past grandmother and grandfather. Okay, and that is intense. That's insane, right? I mean, it's like people are severing their own roots here. and like as if on purpose. So maybe if you have the time, consider your greater spirit, and also based on ancient, very old karma, create a new blueprint for who you are and what is the greater meaning of it all. And sure, maybe your mother is a consumerist, you know, she's really obsessed with things and what people think. Maybe your father's also the same, except he's a workaholic, or he doesn't trust anybody. Maybe he's very militant with his work. Maybe, you know, there's lots of ways in which there is a rotten aspect to our personality sometimes, and also our aged people sometimes can be very concerning to us in terms of what they've chosen in their life and how they've allowed the corruption to sink in very, very far into their souls. It's not just about that. I think it's just about looking back, and also looking back to the future. Okay, so you're looking through your genetics, yeah, your potentiality as a soul, as an energy, as a person, as a purpose, back through your maybe humblest beginnings as the first people on earth, you know, like think of how far they've come, like think of how far your genetic line really goes. And if you've done a DNA test, this is a fantastic time for these actually. If you've done a DNA test, consider the greatest outcomes of your journey as a DNA strand. And also try to forgive those that have tarnished it somehow through depression, through self-obsession, through karmic ties, through narcissism, through consumerism, through greed, you know, through cultural misbehavior, through stealing other people's stuff, you know, and living on other people's grounds, you know. So it's important to be okay with the last few generations in order to cleanse yourself from the previous world, you know, and start again. And also, yes, I'd like to say, if you'd like to get a reading with me, I've got a waiting list at the moment. I do annual reports. I'm doing them at 25% discount at the moment. So if you'd like an annual report, I'll give you 25% discount. And also, I've got almanacs on sale if you'd like one. They're digital, and also they're written, you know, they're in physical form as well. So if you'd like a physical or digital almanac, please have a look. And if you'd like to know about me, more about me, there's a link below. Thank you very much. I hope the noise outside wasn't too disturbing. And have a peaceful ending of the numerical year. Thanks. Bye.